Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here with us today for this ProTools Tech webinar that we have. My name is Gil Gowing. I am a audio solution specialist here at Avid, and I have Tony Joy and Jeff Komar with me today. And we're going to be taking you through some of our latest software releases for both ProTools and EUCON, kind of going over and touching base what we kind of released in those two big releases over the last few weeks. Hope everyone is staying safe out there still, and kind of hope we're kind of getting at the end of this and going to come out of this on the other side, and looking forward to hopefully in the near future to get back out there and start to see everybody in person. All right, so to kind of get going, before we actually jump into the presentation, just want to go over some housekeeping features first. So first thing is because there'll be three of us presenting, and we'll be kind of going back and forth and looking at some different screen shares, but then we'll also be on the screen. The best way to kind of get the most out of this is to go up in the top corner and change your view to gallery view. That's going to be the best thing. Now, there are some other people that are going to be helping us out on the social platforms out there from our team. And there's also some people that would be here behind the scenes. So another thing you can do is to kind of go up to where your name is. You'll see three little dots, and you can get a pull down menu and just hide all the non-video participants, so that basically you'll just see the three of us that will be doing the presenting today. So we will be taking questions. We have some time set aside at the end of the presentation to kind of take those questions. We possibly maybe interject some of those as well. But to get the questions to us, there is a Q&A section. If you'll just open that up and you can type your question in there. We've got people that will be monitoring that, and we'll do what we can to be able to answer those questions. Those of you out there on the other social platforms, we do have people monitoring those comment sections, and if some questions come in, they will do what they can to get them back over to us, and we can answer those live as well. So just real quick, want to talk about what we're going to be covering today with our agenda. First off, we want to kind of take you through what's new with ProTools 2021.6, which came out a few weeks ago now. And then EUCON 2021.6. And so we're going to talk about what's new for S4 and S6, as well as what's new for EUCON 2021.6 for S1, S3, dock, and Avid control. And then, like I said, at the end of the presentations, we will then go about answering those questions that we get from the Q&A. So that's pretty much it for kind of getting the housekeeping out of the way. So I'm going to go ahead now and get it turned over to Tony Joy and have him take you through what's new in ProTools. Tony.
Thank you, Gil. Let me share my screen real quick. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. So very excited to have everyone join us. So here at Avid, we are a customer-centric company, and we take lots of feedback from our customers. And we introduced hybrid engine last year with Carbon, and it was an instant hit, right? Anyone who tried Carbon, listened to it, they were like, oh my, this is life-changing. Your workflow changes for good once you listen to a sub 1 millisecond latency. And this was a very good entry point to people who were not used to HDX cards. And for those of you who are already HDX customers, you invested in us so long ago, and we are investing back in you, into the product. And we are now bringing all the good features of hybrid engine that came with Carbon to HDX cards now at no additional cost. What does this mean? It's huge, actually. So now with hybrid engine, you get the best of both worlds, right? Your engine power is not dedicated to just your CPU or the HDX. You're combining the best of both worlds to maximize the power that you have from both the HDX and your computer. So you can run huge sessions and optimize both your CPU's power and the HDX card chips to bring the best sounding mixes out. With this release with 21.6, we are also increasing the I/O count for both ProTools Ultimate and ProTools software. So now you can have up to 64 channels of I/O at all sample rates. That's key. So if you have an interface that can do, let's say, 40 microphone inputs, you can actually use that with ProTools and bring in all those microphone inputs to either ProTools software or ProTools Ultimate. As it goes without saying, our HD interfaces, both the HDX card and the HD native, also supports a maximum of 64 channels of I/O. Increased voice counts. So going back to hybrid engine, this is going to change the paradigm for HDX workflows. So before, your number of voices were limited to the number of HDX cards. With hybrid engine, you get 2048 voices at all sample rates. Think about it. You could be running a 192 kilohertz session and have up to 2048 voices. This is huge. If you are not using an HD interface, you can still use ProTools Ultimate and get up to 2048 tracks. So you can now run multiple huge sessions on your machine, assuming your computer can run it. Having said that, hybrid engine is so brilliant. Just having one HDX card and a powerful machines takes your workflow to a completely different level. Sub 1 millisecond latency being key. We have also increased the maximum number of audio tracks for ProTools software. So if you are using just a normal ProTools software, you can now have up to 256 mono or stereo tracks, again, at all sample rates. So in the beginning, I mentioned how we take customer feedback, right? So we listen to our customers mostly through our Avid Customer Association, or abbreviated as ACA. And one of the feedback we always received was delay compensation for sidechains on a native system. This has always been a well-loved feature for our HDX customers. And now, starting with ProTools 21.6, you can actually have delay compensation for sidechains on a native system as well. So again, if you're a customer and if you have feedback for us, please know that we listen to you and we bring these features out for every one of you. And this can be a feature in ProTools or an accessibility feature, right? So we work very hard towards accessibility features too. And then we also have small things that make your workflow much more easier. One of those things is changing a track channel width. So let us say you have a stereo track and you want to turn it into mono or into 5.1. Now you can do it with just a single click. And we will look at it in a minute through some screenshots. Talking about small things that make your workflow much faster, efficient, and easier, you can also drag and drop now plugins between tracks with different channel widths. So you might have an EQ, for example, on a mono track. And assuming that plugin can actually exist in a 5.1 instantiation, you can actually move that plugin from your mono or stereo track to a quad or 5.1 or 7.1.2 track. Again, one of those small things that's going to make life much more easier. So how easy is it to do this? Well, as easy as right-clicking a track header, that is one way of doing this. So you can right-click on the track's name, and in the pop-up menu, you can see you have a change track width option. And from that option, you can choose which width you want to change that specific track to. Another way of doing this is from the menu. So if you go to the track menu, you have a change track width option there as well. If you look closely in all these menus and also in the create new tracks dropdown, there's a new show hide option. What this does is it allows you to hide the channel widths that you might not be using on a daily basis. So in my specific workflow, I almost never use LCRS. I don't want to see that in the list. So again, this is a very small thing, but it adds to the elegance of your workflow, reduces clutter so that you can focus on things you should be doing. So this menu now allows you to hide the channel widths throughout that system. So this is a screenshot of the playback engine and the preferences. The reason why I want to show this to you is there's been a few different things I want to point out. In the playback engine, now you have the hybrid engine with HDX, right? And you actually can turn it off if you wanted to. There's very few instances where you might want to do that, but if you had to do it, yes, you can turn off the hybrid engine and you will get what we now call the classic HDX workflow. So that's at the top by the settings. Under the optimization section, you see a new option called limit number of real-time threads. And as you can see in the screenshot, I have it disabled. And this is what you should be doing in most cases. And what does it do? So if you're running ProTools and that's all you are running on your machine, you should leave it off. And what that means is with the setting off, ProTools gets access to all the cores, all the engine power, all the CPU power of your computer. But let's say you are also running some other CPU intensive software on the same machine at the same time. For example, SoundMiner. So you are moving back and forth between ProTools and SoundMiner. And if you see SoundMiner is struggling or freezing, it could be that ProTools is using all the DSP power of your computer. In such a workflow, you can actually enable this option. And what it does is that ProTools knows there is someone else in the system trying to use these things. So it reserves some CPU power for other softwares. The next option below it is the Intel Turbo Boost. Again, I would normally leave it on in most of the cases when I'm mixing or mastering. What it does is it allows your Intel systems to use the Turbo Boost function to give you even more power within your Pro Tools. However, it does increase the fan speed. So in a workflow where you might have your Mac Mini or iMac in a single room recording situation, you don't want the high fan noise. So if you're about to go into a tracking session, you might want to turn that setting off. The next screenshot shows the user-centric, user-requested feature that we introduced, which is the sidechain compensation for native systems. So that's the option to turn it on. In addition to all this stuff, we also added QuickTime improvements to this release, which is 21.6. Now you can do same source bound to MOV with DNxHD, DNxHR, and Apple ProRes. You can also import and bounce H265 videos into a Pro Tools session. So if you have a video that was shot on iPhone, you don't have to use a third-party software to convert it anymore. You can bring it directly into Pro Tools and work on it. You can also do AAC export in MOV files in either constant bitrate or variable bitrate. There's also a huge number of new channel formats added to expanded bounds for MOV audio, starting with LCR all the way up to third-order ambisonics. Apple Silicon, right? The hot topic for a while. Again, this is one of those things that you, our customers, have been asking for. And we are very happy to announce that Pro Tools is now qualified for Apple M1 computers over Rosetta. You can use Pro Tools over Core Audio or with the Pro Tools Carbon interface. We are still working very hard at bringing all these functionalities to Apple Silicon M1 with our HDX and HT native systems. However, as most of you know, this is a very brand new system where you need to do lots of work in the background. We are working very hard at it, and we will have it soon, but just not yet. Same with video playback. Keep in mind, Apple Silicon support is now over Rosetta, so there is no video engine right now for Pro Tools. Last but not the least, last year, we introduced Dark Theme. Again, it was an instant hit. Our customers, all of you loved it. We also got lots of feedback. So we went back to our drawing board and made some more tweaks to that functionality. So 2 quick bullet points. One, you can now switch UI themes without having to restart Pro Tools. You can go between dark and classic on the fly. You can also do lots of UI customizations, which we will take a look at right now. So I have my Pro Tools session open right here. And in the color palette, I have a UI customization option right here, where I can change between my classic theme or my dark theme with just one click. I also have 5 quick presets, which I can save depending on what kind of workflow I might be doing, right? This could be a situation where it's a room that's used by multiple staff members. Someone might need visual accessibility features. They might need higher contrast, less brightness. So they can save a presets and click and bam, they're good to go. You can also save these as presets and share them between different workstations if you had to. And these are the multiple or the myriad of settings you have now. So you can actually change the text brightness, the background brightness, the track header brightness, timeline brightness. You can dive in and change the waveform brightness for the clips, the grids, the marker lines, the automation view. You asked for it, and here it is. So this release is for each and every one of you. So thank you. And with that, I will hand it over to Jeff, who will walk us through some EUCON improvements.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony. So let's jump in, and I'm going to share my screen here first of all, and let's take a look at EUCON. There's some really fantastic stuff that we're excited about with 2021.6, which applies to the whole umbrella of EUCON. I'm going to focus on S4, S6. Gil's going to, after that, take a look at specifically Avid Control, S1, S3, etc. So let's actually dive in a bit here and talk about S4, S6. There's some huge stuff in here. We're going to spend most of our time with the practical actually showing custom mapping, both knobs and faders, because it is the #1 feature people have been asking for a very long time. So happy to take you guys through that and show that. But in addition to that, there's some other great stuff in here. The ability to quickly change what you see in your option or attention knobs and faders on the desk. The ability to quickly change all of your display module views and zooms, whether they're channels or masters or post displays. The ability to trigger soft keys based on a fader value, basically a fader start GPO, and more, a lot more stuff. So let's actually dive into mapping and kind of talk about it. It's really cool. It's very powerful. It's relatively simple to do, and it's actually portable, which we'll talk about in a second. We're going to actually go through all 3 primary maps. That is the master module, the knob module, and the fader module. And you kind of use them in a complementary manner where you can really come up with the workflow that's best for you. The cool thing about mapping is that, there's never the perfect layout of page tables within a plugin. You can optimize for the way that you want to work. I think that is really what it's all about. So we're going to start by actually looking at the master module and kind of want to just kind of introduce it and take you through some things kind of visually. Then we're going to actually do the practical. But the concept is basically telling the system what you want to map. In this case, we're going to use the attention, the docked knobs on the master module, touch custom, basically touch a knob to say, hey, well, I want to work on the S4 or S6 master module. And you can see it says, okay, great, here we go. What do you want to map first? Well, you start and grab a parameter, in this case, input, and say, okay, where do you want to put it? Then you essentially touch a physical encoder, and you're going to correlate and kind of basically just iterate and going through that. And we're going to actually take a look. I think Gil's actually going to do some stuff with the arouser as well. But I think it's a good application because it's not just a compressor where you've got, threshold ratio attack release. It has some other goodness of saturation and filters whereby you may want to take advantage of those things that would not necessarily show up in a dedicated dynamics view. So I think that was a good thing to kind of bring up. So the second thing we're going to look at, which we've already had some functionality here, but this was faders and custom faders. We've basically expanded now what you can do and the efficiency with which you can build these maps, which are very powerful. Taking clusters of parameters, dropping them in the faders, having unlimited pages, having dedicated bypass, some really, really great stuff. So let's actually get out of Keynote here, and we'll flip over and actually take a look at ProTools. And the first thing you're going to see is my desk. This is S4. And basically everything that we're going to do is really analogous to S6 as well. So what I want to do is start by basically going and pressing the home switch. We're going to dive in. We've got a multi-channel ambience track that we're going to work on, which is right here, the Cessna. I'm going to push in and we're going to actually take a look at Altiverb. And I just basically expanded in to see all the parameters on Altiverb on the center section. Now we're going to do basically touch custom. And so I'm going to touch the custom button. And what it does is it illuminates, it says, hey, what do you want to map? Do you want to do faders? Do you want to do a 32 knob module? Do you want to do the encoders that are on the master module? I'm going to say I want to work here first. So I'm going to say, yeah, let's do master module. So basically, whatever makes sense to you. What are the most important things that you want to work on? In my case, certainly reverb time is really important. And the cool thing about the new maps is that as you map, you can interact with the parameters. I think is really, really important, really powerful. You don't have to do everything kind of linearly. You can do it in any order you choose. To me, the wet dry, the mix percentage is also very important. So I'm going to grab that. Throw that over here. So there's the wet dry. Let's say I want to grab, maybe some dampening parameters. So I can actually swipe through to see everything that's available. And then I can touch, and it's going to ask a question. I'm going to actually come back to this in a second. This is a really powerful ability to add additional functionality. But I'm just going to do low, mid, and high frequency dampening that I now have access to. In addition to my reverb time, I've got low, mid, and high, and you can see that right there, that dampening, and there's your reverb time. See that blooming. So I've got one kind of column here built. Let's go to the other side real quick, and let's grab, let's actually grab maybe input, output. Those are important, certainly. So we're going to go master input, master output, and maybe we creatively want to reverse the impulse sometimes. So we can grab the reverse and throw that up there, and you can see I can actually adjust the, invert the reverb, the impulse response. And so I've got 2 pages built. I can keep going to my heart's content depending on what I want to do. Let's just add a page. Right here. And let's say we want to control, this is a 5.1 version of Altiverb. So I want to control the fronts, the rears, the center, and the LFE bleed. So we're going to swipe down and find that stuff. So here's your front, here's your rear, here's your center, here's your LFE bleed. If we hit play, you're not going to hear anything, but you're actually going to see I can, send to the center channel, bleed into the center. I can bleed into the LFE. So I'm actually controlling all the components of that 5.1 element. Let's take a look at the peer parameters real quick. And what this is all about, I'm going to go and grab things like the direct gain, early reflection gain, tail gain, those elements. So let's start with the direct gain. And it actually asked me a question. It says, do you want to keep the switched functionality that the manufacturer created, whereby the direct gain is on the knob and then you toggle with the switch to get into direct color? I'm going to say sure. That's great for right now. And that's kind of the default behavior. And then let's go grab early reflection gain and tail gain. Now, check this out. If you want to, you can actually pull off that discrete direct color, which is really handy. Just like, the kind of the euphonic style frequency toggles into Q with the switch function, I can just retouch the direct gain, and I can say, no, give me direct color specifically and put it here. And now I don't have to dig into the cell switch to kind of toggle. You can see that's the same now as the second page of the direct gain function you can see right here. Okay, so that's the idea. You can choose the explicit parameters you want to pull off and grab. Once you're done with your map, you can hit done. And now I can either, basically page between the 2 pages I created. I can certainly create more if I want, or I can say, you know what, I really want reverb time and the dampening stuff, but on the second side over here, I'd like to have the multi-channel controls, right, of my front and rear. And I can kind of, work, interleave and work on any of that I want. When I touch in on an insert path, it's going to come back to my default state that I created. Okay, so that's the beginning. That is the concept of creating a map, and this is 2 columns of 4, and we're going to actually talk about this, but I could actually use this in the future for my B room, which has got Avid control with a dock. So let's actually segue into taking a look at the 32 grid of the knob module. In this case, it's part of a channel strip module, but it's exactly identical to a knob module in S6. So what are we going to do? We're going to make sure that Altiverb is touched on the actual function scroller. We're going to press custom. It lights everything up again and says, hey, do you want to work on the faders? Do you want to work on the center section? Do you want to work on the knobs? I'm going to say, let's work on the knobs. And so it says, okay, great, here we go. The map is actually pretty good for the expand map for Altiverb, but if I want to optimize it, make it better, or make it more optimized for the way I work, I can do it in the same exact fashion. Again, start and pull out the important parameters that you want first. Let's go grab, we're going to swipe back and grab reverb time. In my estimation, kind of the bottom left is kind of the most valuable parameter, and just me intuitively, I like mix percentage over on the right. That's just kind of how my brain works. So it's over here. Input output, kind of, intuitively to me, I would put it here. But again, you do whatever makes sense to you. There's your input output. There's your mix percentage. Let's take a look at some of the EQ and some of the kind of spectral stuff. Let's just go and just add some bass and treble right here. And then I want to take a look at peer parameters I want dedicated gain frequency Q for the low and the high band. To do that, I'm going to do exactly what we did on the master module. And basically what that is touch EQ low gain, put it somewhere. I'm going to put it here. And again, you can interact right when you grab it. EQ low freak. It says, hey, what do you want? Do you want to do switched? I'm going to say, no, I really want dedicated frequency. Put it here. And you know what? I really want dedicated Q. Put it here. I want to have as much control because I've got 32 knobs. Why not, basically splay everything out? You might as well. EQ gain high, great. EQ freak, specific. And then EQ freak again, I want Q. So let me tear off Q and put it here. So check it out. We've got basically now our low band gain frequency Q, really great. High band gain frequency Q. I can turn the whole EQ module on and off really easily there. Let's say we want our dampening back, which is also always very useful. I'm going to keep this in a switched fashion. We're just going to go low, mid, and high. We'll do toggle. And just so you know, underneath that, nested under there are the crossovers. So I can actually use that cell to get to the different crossovers. That's what's hidden underneath there based on what the manufacturer put together. So that's kind of nice to know. And then I can kind of obviously keep going into my heart's content and figure out what I want. Certainly I'm gonna want access to, and you know what, as you're working, if the orientation or where you put things is not quite ideal, you just write over it, right? So you basically just say, you know what, let's just put our control of multi-channel stuff right here. I'm going to burn over whatever I had there, and we're going to reorient, kind of what we did before, right? Just kind of work as you go. Add additional pages if you want. That's absolutely an option. So page action add. And on page 2, maybe it's more esoteric parameters. Maybe it is, in this case, I don't know, modulation, speed, and depth. Totally up to you. But you literally just add pages. You can also have mirrored stuff. Personally, my own kind of brain, I like to actually have things in similar places. So in my case, I like the concept of having mirrored stuff. And what do I mean by that? Well, page 1, reverb time, really important, right? Mix percentage, really important. Even if I'm on page 2 with more esoteric stuff, I still want to have, my wet dry and my input output. I think those are really important parameters. And you can add as many pages as you want, figure out the orientation, figure out the parameters you want to tear off, where you want to put them, all that's good stuff. And then when you're done, again, just hit done and you're good to go. So now when I actually go and push into an altiverb here, and I'm right now I'm in this, kind of an auto expand mode, if you will, it's going to pop into what I just created, which is, exactly what we just talked about. And there's my multi-channel stuff. And then there is page 2 and my modulation stuff. And I'm good to go. So let's hit go out of expand. Okay. So super powerful. Whether you're creating something on the adjacent encoders on the master module, the expand module, which is very, very powerful. And certainly if I go in ProTools and click on Altiverb now, it's going to light up my dedicated, I've actually set the dedicated encoder to target the first zone, the first attention knob, if you will, okay? And then my default behavior when I go and press attention again is gonna be EQ and dyne, right, with my on attention stuff. So let's back out here a second. We'll pop back into Altiverb. I'm gonna hold down expand because I'm not in auto expand right now. And we're gonna now dive into the world of expand faders, which is also super powerful. We don't have the time to take you through every aspect of it, but I do want to go in and do a little bit of mapping. So same exact workflow. Make sure Altiverb is touched on the function scroller. So we're going to go and touch Altiverb, press custom. It says, hey, what do you want to map? I'm going to basically touch a fader. it's going to bring back a map that you were working on if it exists, right? And I've already got some stuff there, so let's actually work from here. Now let's make some changes. Let's maybe say I want to go and do input output and then keep my wet dry. So wet dry is right there, reverb time's right there, but maybe I want input output. So great, I'm going to grab, actually let's grab a couple things. Let's grab EQ treble, EQ bass, and then maybe output. And I can basically just touch and put it right here. Right, so clusters of parameters, treble, bass, master, output, wet, dry, and then I'm going to burn over some of those things I did as well. Grab those. I'm going to say yes, do a switch function, and throw those right there. So I've got reverb time, I've got brightness, I got early reflections, I've got tal gain, all kinds of fun stuff. You have unlimited pages now, which is fantastic. You also have dedicated bypass, which means whether you're working on an EQ, a compressor, a reverb, you always have a dedicated bypass switch right here. I've got wet dry percentage for mix right here. If I hit advance, I can go to the next page and you can see I've got gain frequency Q as we talked about previously, and I can turn my EQ module on and off. If I want to overwrite anything, very, very simple. Let's go to the last page here and just throw in some additional parameters. Maybe we'll throw mod depth. Let's go. Let's do mod depth and speed. We'll just overwrite what's right here. Okay, so now I've got modulation depth and speed, and I've got that parallel parameter of wet dry on the last fader, and that's just kind of the way I like it. When you're done with this guy, just press done once again, and you're good to go. So let's just kind of dive back in real quick and reorient. Reverb time, right? Center section, great. Dampening, great. If I pop in to expand on the knobs, I've got control, I've got my multi-channel controls here, I've got 2 pages. If I hold down expand, I'm now into expand faders, reverb time, brightness, wet, dry. Page 3, I've got control over those multi-channel components, as you can see, modulation. I can bypass the whole thing. I can page back to page 1. At any point, I can, hold down the option key and I can null parameters, right? All kinds of great stuff. Pop out if you want to get back to your channel faders. You're back out and you still have control from knobs or from the center section. So hopefully that gives you a little look at what is incredibly powerful, and it's most powerful because you can make it yours, make it be intuitive, kind of like a piece of outboard gear, so that when you go in, it's very, very easy to operate. So
Jeff, question came in, and I know you answered this, but a lot of stuff was going on there. Just want to go ahead and get some clarification on it. Yeah. Are there only 2 pages to flip between on the knob modules?
No, so there's unlimited pages in any of the different views, right? Whether I'm doing faders, whether I'm doing the 32, the 8x4 here, or whether I'm doing the 4x2, however many pages you want, you can do it. You can just keep adding pages or deleting pages, no limitations.
All right, so I think, can you hear me all right? Because I had lost audio there for a second.
Yep, we got you.
All right, so let's go ahead and grab my screen real quick, and let's talk a little bit about what's new with EUCON with the smaller control surfaces. So there we go. So definitely some stuff that kind of overlaps here, but it works a little bit different, and that's what we're going to show you here. So we've got custom knob mapping from the Avid control app, and we'll meter strip modes for the tablets that are on your S1s, or if you're using the Avid Control desktop app with either S1, S3, this lets you basically build a meter bridge the way you want to look at it. We'll show that as well. But then there's also some other smaller features that we have. We've got locks build master to dock. We've got the ability, depending, you might be on any one of the pages on your Avid Control app and controlling a EUCON based monitor section and don't want to jump over to the monitor page to see what your level is set at. Now, when you grab that knob and start to move it, there'll be a pop-up on the screen in the bottom right-hand corner to kind of show you what's going on there. Another really great thing, especially for those that do a lot of automation mixing with these surfaces, is now we have automation indicators. So you know which direction your automation is going in. Other things like being able to actually name custom name your speakers and control source and speaker logic controls right from the monitor page without having to go into preferences or off into another app. Bunch of new soft key settings, as well as little things like being able to quickly scroll into view, and even a flip mode LED. So when you actually flip faders, your knobs down to your faders, the flip button will light up and flash, so it'll let you know exactly kind of what's going on. So what I want to do now is I'm going to stop sharing this, and let me get out of this real quick. Share my other screen. So can you see my setup now? Tony, Jeff,
Yes,
can you not?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure that we see that. All right, great. So what we have now, basically showing you some S1s with the control app for the meter bridge, and we've got a screenshot of my actual Avid control app that's on my dock. And so I kind of want to show, I'm going to go over first kind of the custom knob mapping for the U-control surfaces and show kind of the flexibility and how easy that is to use. So the first thing is basically when a manufacturer puts a map out there from the factory, it's the same map for the encoders in horizontal mode on the surfaces as it is with the 4x2 over here on the control app. So if I go over here into inserts and I pop into a arouser, basically lays out my arouser, and it's in the same exact order as if I came over here and popped into it on my control app. Now, that's not always necessarily desirable. You definitely have different workflow functionality when you're looking at a number of knobs in front of you on the surfaces versus what's going over here kind of on the center section. And now we have this custom functionality. So when you go into a plugin on the channel strip page of the app, you can see that there is a custom button up here. And if I tap into that, it basically takes us into a custom plugin editor, similar to what Jeff was showing on the S4 earlier, but there are some differences here. From here, we can choose to do a plugin layout for the 1x8, which is kind of over here, what would be on our horizontal knobs on the surface, or we can do a 4x2. So right now, I'm going to do one over here that's a 4x8, and it's probably kind of hard to see, but when I brought this up, basically it blanked out all of the encoders here, and basically it's going to let us build and see this working in real time. So now all I've got to do is come over here from my list, grab, drag, and drop, and very easily come over here and just start to build my own custom map. And as I'm building this, you'll actually see the parameters start to pop up over here, and I can actually interact like Jeff was saying earlier on the S4, S6. It's the same thing here. So as soon as you place something down, you can start working with it, see if it's something that you like. We're going to come over here and we're going to grab our mix and put it down here in the corner, put our dry trim above that, maybe take our output up here and maybe go for some saturation. Now that gives us the first 8 over here. I've still got another 8 here. So all I got to do is come up here and touch this plus sign. It's going to add another page. And now I can start to add, whatever else I want to this as well. And just like Jeff was showing, you can actually have things show up on multiple pages if you want to. So if I wanted to put our there's our mix, we put it down here in that bottom. So I've got mix kind of here at the end of each one of these. So real easy to kind of create that. And like I said, basically building this map out for this. And as of right now, if I go out of custom, because I've only got the one map, it's showing that now over here on our the control app as well. But in some instances, I might want this to be a totally different layout for how this is working over here. So if we go back into custom, I can go in now and choose to do a 4x2 layout. Now from here, I can build this totally separate. So whereas I had put the input or threshold control starting over here, I actually want that over here on the right side for this. So I'm going to start to bring all of this on this side now, and attack, release, and then I want my say my mix over here. Same thing, if I want to build another page, I can do that and bring our mix down there, so I've got multiple things, and then I can start to drag stuff up. Now if I place something somewhere and I don't want it, I can either come over here and hit the clear button to get rid of it, or I can just drag on top of what's already there and just have it overwrite that. Once again, once I'm done, I can hit the custom button to go out of this, and now basically all of that information is now stored in that file. And I've got a separate map now, what's going here on my surface versus what I've got going over here on my control app. All right, so another really cool thing that you can do with the custom mapping is you can, even though we've done a really good job of laying out kind of the dynamics and the EQ parameter sections, kind of the parameters that you can bring up, depending, and it doesn't matter what plugin you're using for that. If you might not like that layout, so you can actually adjust and go in and make custom versions of those things as well. So this allows you to really, on either a 1x8 or a 4x2 as well, go in and for dynamics or EQ, build your own total custom maps up and be able to work the way you want to. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, kind of what we have here for custom mapping. So the next thing I actually want to show you is the meter strip designer, and this is actually pretty cool. So to get to the meter strip designer, it's on the Avid control app in the gear settings. So we'll tap that top right corner of that gear, and we'll go in there, and you'll see under the settings column, meter strip designer. We tap that. Now we have our meter strip designer up. So the first thing you're going to see on the far right side is what we call the strip preview. And that's what is basically showing up as kind of the meter that you have kind of selected at this point. From here, if all you want to do is just kind of rearrange things, like I might want to take the channel name here that's highlighted and put it at the bottom. So I can just drag and drop that down here. And I might want to put the automation up by the meter and kind of leave everything else the way it is. Once I kind of get that set the way I want to, if I hit save, then my meters update on my tablets. And it's just that easy. Now, if I want to really kind of dive in and build something totally different than what's there, the first thing I need to do is actually come over here and start to drag out all of the parameters over here into the available items to kind of give us a starting point. So the one thing you can't drag out of the strip preview is the actual meter, because that always has to be there. But now I actually have all of these elements here that I can now start placing back into and start to create my meter view. So one thing, if you notice, when I drag the multi-graph out, which is normally where you can switch between a pan, a dyne plot, or EQ plot views, it basically broke those individual elements out from the multi-graph. So what I want to do is kind of have some things in a multi-graph, but then I want the pan actually separate. So to do that, we're going to drag the multi-graph back over to our strip preview, and then we're going to drag dyne and EQ over. Now, once those are over, we can then drag those right there onto the multi-graph. Now, the dyne and EQ are part of the multi-graph, but then I'm going to actually come over here and place pan as a separate thing. Then what I want is I want automation, and then I want my track name. So I'm going to drag that over there. Now I've got all this in place to go ahead and make this active. I just hit save, and then voila, you see all of the meters on my tablets on my S1 have now updated to this new view. If I ever want to get back to kind of a default state from what comes to the factory, all I've got to do is hit default and save, and now we're back to a starting point. You can also, as you're building something, if you've changed anything and want to go back to the last version that was, in this case, it would be default, all you got to do is hit cancel, and it basically will kind of let you start over and get back to where you were. So that is Meter Strip Designer. Like I said, there's some other really nice goodness going on in this EUCON release. Definitely would tell you to go and check that stuff out and get a hold of it. It's really, really cool release. A lot of really, really great things there. So we've got about 13, 14 minutes left of this, and I know we've got some questions that have come in. I'm going to bring Tony and Jeff kind of back online. We're going to stop the share. You guys there?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So basically have got some questions that have come in. I know that probably some of them have been answered, but let's go ahead and once again, we're monitoring this Q&A. If you've got some questions, you can go ahead and put them in here, and we'll try to get to them here in the next few minutes. So first question that came in that I'd like for us to kind of answer here is, can regular Pro Tools now use an HDX card with the new hybrid engine? So, I mean, I'll go ahead and take that one. It's one that probably needs a little bit of explaining. So when we introduced hybrid engine back with Carbon back in late last year in November of 2020, Carbon comes with Pro Tools, and you can use the hybrid engine obviously with Pro Tools on that version, or if you had Pro Tools Ultimate or wanted to upgrade to Pro Tools Ultimate, you could use Pro Tools Ultimate with the hybrid engine with Carbon. HDX is always and always will be tied to Pro Tools Ultimate. There with the HDX card, and when Tony showed the playback engine there, hybrid engine can be disabled if you decide you want to go back and work with kind of the classic HDX mode that we've always had before. And that can only really work with Pro Tools Ultimate. And so HDX is always going to be tied to Pro Tools Ultimate, and at this time it will not work with just a regular Pro Tools license. So you would need Ultimate to work with HDX. All right, so another question that came in, and definitely got some different things. So I guess this one came in. Jeff, you might have answered another question for this gentleman. I'm going to go ahead and just read the question and see if we can answer it. So for stereo tracks output to surround formats, it'd be super helpful to have the front and front rear controls and the left right sides on one page. I'm assuming that he's talking about for S4 S6 control. I'm not. He was talking, since he was talking to you. I guess that's what. Just thought I'd bring that up. So, do you?
Yeah, no, I understand what he's asking. It's presumably talking about the custom fader map for the pan map. We actually have made some changes with this version of EUCON for pan mappings. And it is a little bit more unified. However, if you did have a stereo track, feeding a multi-channel output, you would still, assuming you're unlinked, those states are unlinked, you would still have to have either interleaved or allocate different pages to the left and the right elements, parameters. So yeah, well, that's good feedback, and that's something that we'll definitely give back to product management. I understand what he's getting at.
All right, so let's put that one away. There's definitely some questions up here that just kind of are more generic type questions. There's a question came in. Maybe Jeff, you can answer this one. I'm not quite sure about kind of where this is going, but Atmos question: will there be a way to ever be a way to replace the MP4 Atmos file with an MP4 video file of choice?
I mean, there are, if you actually go to the Dolby knowledge base, there is actually and I don't know if I can find it in the next 5 seconds, but if you go to the developer.dolby.com and actually do a search, they actually do have some, there's some some tools that you can download to actually add pics to the Atmos audio that you export from the MP4 if you look in the knowledge base. So there are ways to do that. I understand you're probably asking for a more simple built-in way to in DAMs or DAPs to do that, but that would be a question deferred to Dolby, really. But do check out developer.dolby.com and do a search in there. You'll find there are some workarounds.
Question came in. This one, I believe, is referring to the new functionality I was talking about when you grab the control room knob on the actual dock, and when you move it, there's a pop-up window. The question asks, could the control room knob be made to show the window simply by touching it? Definitely great feedback. It's definitely feedback that we've gotten already, and we will definitely pass this back along to the engineering teams and see if we can't make some changes to that in a future release. Not promising anything, but definitely good feedback there, and hopefully we can see what we can do about that. There is a question, can you bounce to QuickTime across video edits? You want to, I mean, I think what that means is there's multiple video edits on the timeline on a video track in Pro Tools. Can you bounce across them? And when you bounce to QuickTime, that's actually bouncing into a single file. It basically will make a single file out of that. So the edits will no longer be there. But you can definitely make a selection across those and have that create a new video file from those edits and then bounce the audio into that. I think that's what you're asking, and that's how that would be done. Let's see. What else do we got? So a question, Jeff, maybe you can help answer this one. Is there an option to have the LRC, LFE, LSS, so on both outputs and buses? The default on the buses are LCR, LFE, LSS, RSS, and so on. Right now,
so you're saying, so we've got the little pop-up preset that says, hey, what's your path order? And you're saying that only works outputs and buses. I thought it applied to both. Does it not? I thought once you chose, maybe he's right, we'd have to take a look at that. I thought when you chose the little pop-up to choose whether you want SMPTE or film order or whatever, creating a new path would set that.
Well,
maybe
the output path you can, the buses you can't at this time. It's kind of like the meter order. It kind of stays the way it's preset, the way we have it. But obviously with the output, you can, when you're going out, you can actually change that. But because it's internal in Pro Tools, it stays a certain way. Definitely something that has been asked in the past, and we'll definitely pass that back along as well as a feature request. Let's see, what else do we have? Got about 5 minutes left here. Is there an instrument or track recognition function if drop and drag an MP4 file into a new workspace or flow? Either one of you guys want to take a stab at that one? I'm not exact. I mean, if you're talking about dragging and dropping an MP4 file from the workspace or from Finder, I mean, it'll create a new track for you or place it. I mean, you get a pop-up window for that. If that's what you're asking, then yes, we do have that type of drag and drop. Now, if you're talking about for an actual trying to drag that type of file into like a sampler instrument or something like that, then no, we don't have that type of drag and drop functionality at this time. And hope that answers your question there. Have you guys been looking at this list? Is there anything else on here that you might be able to help answer?
Yeah, what's the best way to record and prevent delay while mixing with delay compensation on? The short answer would be hybrid engine, right? So with either carbon or HDX, that gives you sub 1 millisecond latency. And as we hinted at earlier, that's one of those things that you listen to and get used to, you cannot go back, right? So that would be the best way to reduce your latency when you're recording.
Yep, and also because the rest of the mix is on the native mixer at that point, it's all buffered and time aligned with that DSP path. So it's definitely not something you have to worry about dealing with after the fact.
Correct. Yeah, one click and you get all that.
Question, will we see a controller with just 32 knobs in the S1 type format for plug-in control? Good question. Definitely had that question asked in the past, and it's definitely something I think we would all welcome. Don't have any real answer to if we will be able to do that or not, but we will definitely pass that on as well and get that as a request for a new product. All right, so we've got a couple minutes left. Got a couple more questions coming in here. Let me scan this real quick. So question here, and I think, Tony, you just answered this. When I have an HDX system with a DSP card, is it better with hybrid mode? And I think anybody that's experienced hybrid engine, like Tony had just said, absolutely, that's probably your best workflow especially when recording. You get that super low latency on the DSP path decoupled from the native mixing engine, lets you have full track count, big mixes going on without having to worry about doing any kind of buffer switching or anything like that. So it's definitely kind of the better thing. And we've also talked a little bit about the past. You also get as far as if you're using a hybrid engine and you're using that DSP in maybe larger sessions to kind of offload some of the heavy lifting of certain plugins. If you don't have maybe a super powerful computer, as in kind of comparison to just the classic HDX mode, when you use hybrid engine in that way, it majorly reduces voice count because all the hops that you're going back and forth between that hybrid engine and the native mixer, as well as reduces all kinds of system latency with that as well. So there's, not even just for just recording in low latency mode, but there's definitely a lot of really, really good reasons to use hybrid mode with HDX.
Yeah. Gil, just want to expand on that a bit. So Gil mentioned system latency, right? So yes, recording is one aspect of it. But if you're mixing on an S6 or an S4 or even S1, system latency means the moment you make a write on the fader, you don't hear any more latency of that. This is also game changing, right? What you do is what you hear and not a few milliseconds later. So it all adds up. So having an HDX or hybrid engine active, yes, gives you low latency, but also gives you low tactile latency when using a surface and makes the whole mixing process seamless. Hey, Gil, we lost your audio. Wonderful. Jeff, do we have any other questions that you would like to answer before we wrap?
I think we are at the time. So I just want to thank everybody for hanging with us for the session. And if you haven't checked out EUCON 2021.6 or ProTools with the HDX hybrid engine, please do. There's some really, really powerful and significant workflow and game-changing features in here. So check it out. There's a number of videos on YouTube as well, and various documentations on all of these things. So on behalf of myself and Gil and Tony, thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.